It's so good to see you again, Emma. Emma Cutting from Heartscapes in Naarm, Melbourne. It's really lovely to have you here again on this podcast, but also for the first time on our Wild and Kind Wednesday series. We see each other a lot, but in terms of the last time we had a conversation like this online, we were just chatting about that before we came online. That it was what 2022 that we'd
Yep.
had a chat on this podcast. So, welcome back, firstly.
Thanks, Morag.
And perhaps a good place to start is like, so in the last 4 years since we saw you last here on the podcast, um, what's been going on?
That is that a lot. Let's go with that. But I also because I watched I don't normally rewatch things, but I did watch a bit of our podcast, and it was really interesting to see me speak back then because there were already so many things that had been solidified around thinking, but I think since then my thinking has become a lot more solidified. Like our street gardening approach, has the four principles, and then there's the design for the Melbourne Pollinator Corridor has essentially not changed. And I'm really proud of that, actually. It didn't need to change, which is fantastic. However, what has developed on from there is not just the design and approach, but also the systems that have been needed to develop to, uh, you know, roll it out. So I've had 4 years to manage this public this public land and continue to regenerate it. And I think that's been the huge thing. The other thing though has been, and it's taken years and years and years, is to get incredible support. No, there's always been incredible support, but to really get the right people around me, I feel like I'm not just out there on my own now. Um, and it's the most incredible feeling. It's not that I'm doing less work, but I just have people around me. That we've got a new, as far as governance, which is really, really kind of boring, but really, really important. And actually, when you get the right kind of governance going, it's actually really, really positive. You've got a beautiful board and a new chair, and we've just appointed an organizational patron in Fiona Brockhoff, which is incredibly exciting. So all of these things have been working towards.
And I'm very happy to be an advisor on your organization too. So thank you for asking me. To just catch people up in case they're not familiar and they haven't seen the previous conversation. Just like an overview of what is the Melbourne Pollinator Corridor and what is your particular approach to street gardening that you do?
Um, so the Melbourne Pollinator Corridor essentially is a wildlife corridor that is for our native pollinating insects. We're running it through the inner city, through Melbourne, through the heart of Melbourne, and it's connecting up Royal Botanic Gardens to Westgate Park. Now, they're too large, they're biodiverse, but they are essentially isolated green patches. Um, what else? It's a lot of other things as well, though, because it runs through such an a densely populated area. It's an education platform. It's a way to connect people to nature. And of course, in cities, we are very much lacking this connection, and it's getting harder and harder to find. Um, and it's also a demonstration of inner city urban biodiversity conservation. which definitely in the last 4 years, that's definitely come on in thinking. It's also a demonstration of the power of street gardening. So the Melbourne Pollinator Corridor or the MPC, takes our street gardening approach, which is care-led and community-centered, and then builds on that with an interdisciplinary approach. So we're looking at local and international research, plus the input of over 30 scientists and specialists. That was right at the beginning. And then we've got our wonderful MPC advisory panel, of which, yes, you are a part of, which help to keep it in, keep that interdisciplinary approach, and that helps me incredibly with the thinking. It also has, though, as part of the design, a flexibility. And this has been really important, and I'm so glad it was an intentional thing right at the start, which is to do with, when you're flowing through this urban matrix. I had definitely an idea of where the gardens would go, and actually, the initial map that was made is very wide. Now we're getting a lot more strategic, and, we've got 56 gardens in, so we're aiming for 200 gardens. And that flexibility enabled us to just put gardens in where we could. Now we're getting a little bit more strategic, honing in a little bit more, and getting a little bit more of a line through. And that flexibility has come from essentially, I suppose, a quote by Bruce Lee. And that's, he says, "Be water, my..." I'm sure he's
Emma,
much better than mine.
your sound was going on and off as you leaned back and forwards, I think, for some reason. And it says my internet's unstable. How is that?
Mine weirdly seems fine. It's normally mine.
I just had something flash up like I'm on some crazy strong internet and it just came up saying I'm stable. Anyway, if we could just go back to the bit where you said Bruce Lee,
Oh yeah, sure.
because you
That's where
said,
I saw your face change. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, right.
yeah,
That's why.
yeah.
What was I saying? What was I? Oh, the flexibility. How do I even start that? So
You were saying a quote by Bruce Lee, so we could just
yeah, the idea around this flexibility has in part come from a quote of Bruce Lee, which is "Be water, my friend." And the way I have taken that is to take the path of least resistance and to flow around the resistance. Now, at the start, you absolutely need to do this. And I think this is, a lot of people have said this is very ambitious. Of course, this is an ambitious project. Oh, what about this section? What about this section? How are you going to cross the highways and blah, blah. It's like, well, yeah, they're really, really good points. And there are some tricky points in this land. However, there's so much that can be done. So we focus on all of that. And then that creates a momentum that I know will enable us to get through those sticking points.
Can I just ask you where you found your huge courage and that, you're saying is very ambitious, like to have such an ambitious vision and goal and to step out there and do that. Like I often hear great ideas, but you're one of those people who actually goes, I have a great idea and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, where does the courage come from? Many things. I must admit, I have reflected a little bit on this of late. I think a lot of it's come actually from my piano background, where I was very serious about piano for many, many, many years. And, it's doing the 5, 6, 7 hours of practice a day. And it's a real grind. And I think I learnt about the process of just keeping on, keeping on. Whether it's a good day or a not so good day, that's what you do. You just keep going. That's been huge. It's been really there's so many days that are not so great. We and it's to know that also those days when you keep on going that are not so great, that builds momentum for the really good days.
Mm.
And that has come from my CFS, like having chronic fatigue syndrome for so long as well, where I learnt that to go and get your therapy, whatever it is, to go and get treated on the times, at the times you want, at the times you feel good. That's building momentum so that you can actually improve rather than just going when you feel absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
So it's those things, but I would also say that growing up where I did, northern New South Wales, absolutely gorgeous, had this incredible farm. Nature was absolutely my safe space. It was not in the home at all. And I look back now and I didn't have to please anyone. I didn't have to prove anything. I was there and there was a lot of nature around. Nature is, I absolutely do consider it my family. You know, that's a really, it's very, very powerful to me. So to not have access to nature when I was sick, I realized just how incredibly horrific that was, to be honest. And then when I started street gardening and I saw the immense power of street gardening, which was about 2016, I just went, this is, if anyone can have a fraction of the healing that this work has had for me, then that'd be fantastic. The healing is ongoing and it's not always, I mean, I suppose even the challenges are healing in a way. There's also, I have been told a lot in my life by significant people that I can't do things. It's been like a red rag to a bull with me. Although I absolutely doubt myself most days, I go, oh my God, what am I doing? Really? Really? Do I really want insecure housing for this many years? Do I really want this? I come back to this. I go, I know it can be done. I know there's support. It's like anything. I'm just scaling this thinking process of how every problem can be solved. It can all be solved. How do we do this? And how do I best be smart about this? And one of the things you don't want to do is start getting negative. Of course, that's very.
But in order to continue, even on the days that you don't, feel it so much, that as you were describing just then, you must have a very strong sort of North Star or guiding star, or like there's something that you're holding very well deeply inside, but strongly, strongly in your heart and in your mind, obviously, because it's something that you're working towards.
Mm.
Can you articulate what that like? What's that bigger picture, like the sort of the overarching thing that you're working towards through this?
Creating hope in a place that in which is public realm where it really doesn't seem to exist.
Mm.
I just can't stand that this land is being treated in this way.
Mm.
Rats. I would also say though that very much so doing this to show my daughter. Oh, rats, Morag. um, to show her that change can happen. I want to be able to talk about these big issues, the big issues that are happening And the way I feel that I can is by showing her to balance it out with the fact that we are taking action and that she can see that. Now, of course, it's for my daughter EJ, but it's also for so many kids that live around here to be able to see this, but it's for kids everywhere to see that older people are taking risks, big risks for them to change things, to not just land it on their shoulders. I have big problems with this. I will also say that it's not right to separate people from nature, and in whether it's a city or peri-urban, urban, inner city, whatever. I think it's a right that we have access to nature. And when I talk about nature, I talk about local ecosystems, like what this connection to this land here. Then, of course, this is very, it's there's a whole lot of that proving people wrong, whether it's proving all the people that gave me a very, very hard time from, in various ways. There was a big couple of years around the time when I spoke to you when I was fighting council. And that was, I have to thank them now. And that's a really big thing that's happened in 4 years. The fact that I can say that is ridiculous because of what happened to me. But to go, this is a demonstration to councils. This is a demonstration to individuals. It's a demonstration to families. This is a way that we can really bring action to so many different people and ideas and hope to so many people. So I could probably stop there.
Oh, wow. Sorry to make you cry. I didn't mean to, but thank you for actually being so honest and heartfelt in your response. It really describes to me, well, it describes to the listeners, because I already know how deeply committed you are to this and how much it is an expression of your values, who you are, what you stand for, all the things that you really want to show up in service of the world and of your daughter too. And that is just so evident. I wonder if you could take us on a bit of a visual walk through, like as you head out to these, just so people get a sense of what these gardens are that you're talking about. So as you go out and you want to, like we did when I came and walked with you, enter the gardens. How would you describe them? What happens there? What's changing in that space, both from a biodiversity perspective, maybe from a hydration perspective, from a beauty perspective, from a community perspective? What's there and what's happening? What's ongoing?
Well, I think in essence what we're doing is transforming barren pieces of public and public-private land into gardens that are Indigenous focused, as in we plant very much mainly Indigenous plants, so plants of the area. And it's taking patches that are invisible. They are the pieces of land that we look through, that we walk past, that we completely ignore. And it's understandable too, because that's how we've been trained to think about these pieces of land, that they are nothing. And as you can tell, I have a big problem with this. And I want to make them visible and it's to gradually bring them back to life. It actually happens a lot quicker than you might think. They've been degraded for so long, and ignored for so long. But the land really wants to heal itself. And I think that's, again, looking at that 4-year gap between our talks, the official talks, that's something that I've seen now, that the land absolutely can heal. It does want to heal. Yes, it takes more than one planting. You don't just sprinkle some potting mix and plant a couple of plants in that and go, and now we're done.
Oh,
It doesn't work like that, but it does work over 4 or 5 years. We've had gardens in now for up to, yeah, probably 6 years. I've got 10-year gardens here, but some of the bigger patches, definitely. I can see, we've honed our process. So one of the things, actually, maybe I'm getting into too much detail there. When people go on this walk, when people walk around, you'll see instead of nothing, you will see interest. There is movement. I love, that's a huge part of it. It's mainly understory. So we work within constraints. So we do work, even though we don't work with council at this point. I am in conversations with them. It's good, cautiously optimistic about these things. But so we work with really low plantings most of the time. Wherever we can put in mid-story, so that's fantastic, and we occasionally get to plant a couple of trees. So you're looking at eye level. So it's, this is what we're missing when we walk around the cities, is just interest. Often we have planted a lot of introduced deciduous trees as well. So in winter, it's just grey. The cities are grey.
the city I grew up in, and I can attest to that because I grew up out in the suburbs of where you are now, up in the sort of, I think it's the highest hill in Melbourne. And there was a lot of biodiversity, a lot of nature, a lot of birds. And I was deeply inspired by that. For people say, oh, the suburbs, but actually this did have that richness. And the way that our garden was designed, my mum planted it so that as you walk down the garden path, you come home and you smell all the sort of the native mint bushes, and there's all, it's all there. And then I headed into the city, into the inner city when I was starting to go to uni. And I was like, oh, this is grey. This is just like grey stone and grey landscape, grey buildings. And it was really quite a shock, I think, when I first experienced it, because I was used to, like you, like just being surrounded by nature and birds and all sorts of things, not quite as richly as my life is now and as you grew up with. But I think there is this sense of loss and yearning when we're in a place that doesn't have that. One thing that I noticed when I was walking through the gardens with you is that what it does is, because the plantings are so rich and so colorful and full of life, that when you're coming, and it's often around a crossing or something. And so as you come to that crossing, instead of just looking at the road and crossing over, you actually just stop for a bit and appreciate and notice where you are. And that slowing down and bringing you into place connects you with country. And so it is a powerful approach you have that, like you're saying, it's not just about the regen work, or it's not just about anything. It's about all of them all together, and shifting our perspective of where we are in place and noticing that actually wherever we are, it is a natural place, and how we tend and care for it matters. And so that that I think really struck me as I was standing in those beautiful places. You get more. You get it's not just the visual beauty. You get the smell of it, and
Yes.
and like you're saying, there's that movement as the wind moves past, and you hear different sounds of the crackling of seed pods. It's like there's something else that is this whole body experience, and I think we're all
Yep.
deeply yearning for.
Yep.
We long for that connection and that richness, and it can't be met another way other than just being in it. And there's something, as you're saying, there's very healing when we engage in the restorative work. So I wonder whether you have any stories. I mean, you've shared a bit about yourself, but anything that you've noticed that's happened in the community as a result of being engaged in these sorts of projects, like individual stories, or actually like the we stories that are
Yeah.
emerging.
Oh, look, absolutely. Um, Interesting what you were talking about with the smells, though. A lot of what we plant. does actually smell really good. We don't plant toxic plants, for instance. We're very, very cautious about what we do. So a lot of it actually does smell really, really amazing. And even though, of course, rosemary is not indigenous, I actually put it on a lot of corners for various reasons. For one, it just stands up to dog wee super, super well. So I definitely don't put one rosemary in there. I put about three, and there's one that will take one for the team and probably cark it, but then the others will. But also, we're talking about indigenous flora here, which is really not well known. And so it's almost a kind of a lead into the garden. People can latch onto something that they do know, and they go, oh, and it actually makes them, I've noticed it makes them feel better about the rest of the garden if they can already recognize something in there. But also, of course, it smells amazing. And, when I'm cutting back all the gardens, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. This is great. It smells incredible. As far as stories, yes, I've got never-ending stories. But the other day, a lady came up to me. We have a garden in next to public housing, and we've had that there for about 5 years. And boy, it's been an incredible journey, incredibly humbling journey of just meeting all these people that I wouldn't normally get the opportunity to meet, all these beautiful people. And this one lady, I hadn't officially met her before, but she stopped and wanted to speak to me. And she said, I've been living here for 8 years, unfortunately. And she sort of stopped at that. And then she went, but I've really loved seeing the progress of this garden.
Amazing.
And that's incredibly powerful stuff, because that's exactly what I would love people, the residents, to see and to experience. As I said, this has been a journey where a couple of times the garden's been completely torn apart, ripped up completely. And we've gotten back in there, and, I would say, yes, tear, all right, and we get back on. We do it because this is what it's about. It's about no, we're still going to care. It doesn't matter the garden's been ripped apart. We will still come back in and we will still care. And people go, really? You've come back? Okay, it didn't scare you off. It's like, no, this is just what it is. This is what the work is. And people really respond to that. It's taken a lot of time to build trust with people like that.
Yeah.
And they now know that we are coming back and that it is a journey. I'd also say, as far as it was something that's always been very important to me and has been part of the work, but is becoming more explicit as we go along, is the thinking around, it's how we are changing women's approach to safety in public realm. And I'm starting to do a few surveys with volunteers, and because I've heard people go, when you're out here, I feel safer.
Oh, wow. That's so powerful.
It's so powerful. And it's not, I think, that because of what we do, because of how we approach it, it's very thought out and strategic, but it's also, we are absolutely leading with care and kindness and joy. You can do serious work joyfully. You can do serious work and have fun. And a lot of people, not a lot, there are people that miss that there. And I have to keep reminding myself of the power in this, and kindness can so easily be perceived as weakness by certain people, especially
Which is exactly why I've centered this in the festival and this series, because we often talk about the work of restoration, regeneration, all this kind of thing, and actually what we do need is massive amounts of kindness and love and it's not weak. It is so not weak. It is absolutely one of the most courageous things that we could be doing at this time. And particularly when maybe we don't feel it reciprocated to begin with, that we still show up in kindness because we care and we're absolutely in love with life and want to be in service of life. And, that matters. And so, I think we really need to throw out the window this idea that being kind is being weak,
Oh,
that it is
but I think it scares people.
Mm,
I think for people that aren't used to it, I think it scares them. And I've seen this a lot. Um, but you can kind of, in a way, I learn how to, it's not hiding it at all,
mm,
but you can be kind in different ways with people. And I've found uh, with when you're doing the face-to-face community engagement, there's a way that you can be just with just kind of riff off how people are at. I love meeting people where they're at in their story of understanding and trying to move them not right over to there, just to there. And I love doing that. But I would also say, because now we're looking at, yeah, when we're looking at funding, for instance, and I'm talking to different potential funders, uh, it's pretty, I've definitely learnt a lot in the last year, in particular, about this and how I've got to be really, really sure that of myself, and I can't let anyone, whether they fund or not, they go, oh, for instance, you don't seem like you've got enough confidence, or um, they look at me and judge me personally, like my personal financial situation or my personal situation as a single mother, or the fact that we are not corporate. It is not how we are. And that's a good thing because we need to balance out that that way of thinking
mm.
and doing with
And how
this.
change happens and
Exactly.
how we yeah.
And and I've learned to be, first of all, ready for these people to say these things to me. And also, I need to be ready to really back myself with
Mm.
kindness, and I need to back myself with kindness, literally. I need
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
kind to myself. And
yeah.
I also need to know that we are on the right track. We
Mm.
are. And I would say, you can see I'm getting so full on about it because honestly, I have this talk with myself probably every day
Mm.
where I really have to give myself a pep talk, uh, and pretty much say this stuff to myself
Yeah.
because there's so much that could bring down, that can create doubt. It's so much.
It's really interesting that you should say that. I'm having a one of the conversations that we're having in the Permaculture Educators Program tonight is we have people who are doing permaculture and something, and this woman's doing permaculture and mental health, and she's talking about burnout. And, like this is a really big thing. How do, when we're doing this work, not lead ourselves down that path to just be giving all of ourselves so that there's nothing left for that is nourishing us. So, we need to sort of add the compost to ourselves, to our own souls, to our own families, to our own gardens, as well as giving it out. Because unless we have that sort of deep grounded rootedness and sense of sort of care and being held, then it's really hard to have the balance if something wonky goes on in
Yeah.
the outer world. And so yeah, it's a really interesting conversation that I think, really needs to be had more. And part of what we try and do too is sort of have these circles, like it could be a learning circle, a community circle, a community of practice. And like I have an international circle of women that I talk with, and we're all sort of leaders in different things that we do, and we have the conversations that we can't have in the work that we do, maybe, or like in the work that you're doing, like perhaps there's a group that you could just have regularly that is like a place where you're holding each other's energy, and whether that's your community group or the hub of team that you have, or just a group of friends doing disparate ecological work in the city. So you have that sort of weave of things. But sorry, I went a bit long on that, but it just made me think about that care for ourselves and that kindness to ourselves in order that we can continue to do this earth care work and people care work. That
Absolutely. It's been a huge topic for me to think about this year.
mm,
Um, it gets lonely doing this kind of work. I'm very happy working by myself,
yeah.
but it does get lonely when there are certain things that you really can't share with the people that are around you, no matter, how
I
awesome they
totally
are.
get it. Oh yeah, I
And
know what you mean. And I think the thing that I've learned is that having a community of practice or having some kind of circle, there's your action circle that in your doing space where you're the leader and you need to hold a certain kind of level of energy to hold the energy of that group. Then you need to be part of a group that you are held by. And that piece
yeah,
is often not thought about because and I just think it's so essential in all of us who are doing this work. Like what is it that keeps us, not just feeling everything's just coming out,
yep,
and you can pat yourself on the back and give yourself and we all need to do that and that's great. But there's also the need for this other thing, I think. So
absolutely. I would also say for me personally, I've learned to be a lot more, and I can say this without laughing or making a joke about this because, the highs and lows of this kind of work are insane. And you can literally have it within like a week with, a massive high and then a huge low. So I think I've become a lot more even about that. I still go up and down. I'm just that kind of person. I have just emotions that, are just
but you know,
powerful.
like having said
They're
that,
strong.
though, I think the fact that you do go high means you have a high energy to be able to activate things that if you just on an even keel, you wouldn't.
Maybe.
And so, like acknowledging the power that that brings into your way of doing things, like, I
Yep.
don't know, I feel like
Oh,
you
look,
you
there's
spark something when you're in that mode, like that you can't spark if you just kind of no 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 no.
yeah. Look, I'm very I love that about myself. I do, and I love that. I think it's just bringing it in a little bit because it gets really draining.
Oh yeah,
Really up and down all the time.
yeah,
That's a lot of energy out.
yeah, yeah.
Just I wonder if it's more because I've been doing it a while, I don't get swept away so much. Maybe it's more that it's not an I don't feel out of control so much.
Yeah.
It's more, okay, that's really fantastic. Um,
Mm.
someone said something about some funding the other day that came through, and they said, "Oh, are you happy?" I said, "Yes." I think I'm also very relieved. And it's not so, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah,
And then the next day, oh, big. Look,
yeah.
naturally go through those processes as a person. I do have big downs.
Mm.
Um, I have been through enough of those myself to know that I do get through them. And
Yeah,
I know what I need to do, even when I'm really down. I know what I need to do to just move myself out. And
yeah.
one of the things that I will say on those tough days, it's not necessarily on the really tough days, and this comes from CFS, the chronic fatigue syndrome, is yet one footstep, like you move one thing forward even if you do that, and that's where I started from, I had EJ in 2018, and when that was big, breastfeeding and exhausted, and I just went with all of this, move one thing forward,
Mm.
write one email,
Yeah,
move something forward, and I do come back to that actually quite a lot. Okay, let's just get that one thing done.
yeah,
And it really, really helps.
yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
beautiful.
all of this, though, it's taken so much practice.
I can tell. I can tell. I mean, it's a it's a experiential learning journey, but also of knowing yourself and then applying the learnings that you have in one dimension of your life to other dimensions, because life is this dynamic, you know, full of pulses and ups and downs and lefts and rights, and finding our way, navigating, like, yeah, getting better at navigating, I suppose, is the
Maybe, yeah. And definitely when you talk about that North Star, it's definitely, yeah.
yeah,
There 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 are many why I
oh,
do this.
yeah,
And I think that they're all needed
mm,
because in those times of wavering, for instance, when there are so many positives that come out of this work. Let's go with that. There are so many positives. There's positives from people, there's positives from the garden itself, growing, regenerating in the life with the plants. And then there's the critters as well. So there's all these dimensions that you can pull positivity from. Some of them aren't always positive. For instance, people's probably where it most, it's, you can get down, but go, okay, let's pull on the other whys. Let's pull
yeah,
on the critters and let's go look at that win we've just had with that. Look at that win. And then, people, of course, they are amazing and they do come through.
mm,
There are wins there as well. So it's having all these whys and when one of them wavers, to pull on something else that's
yeah,
positive.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way of approaching it too. And like living here in the eco village for the last 25 years, and there's always people issues. There's people issues in any community. I don't think we can say it's either one or the other. And so I sort of back off from any conversations around, blaming, the community here or anything like that. But what I do notice is that exactly what you said, when we shift the perspective and say, wow, look what we're creating together, look what we're restoring together, look what bird chose to arrive back in this place because of the care that we've tended to this land. And then you go, wow, we did that. Like there's this sense of joy that comes out of that takes you away from just like the day-to-day conversations. It's kind of like, oh, this something larger than ourselves that we're part of here. I did want to ask you, because I know that the time is moving on quite rapidly here, Emma, but I wanted to ask you about your journey to Slovenia, because you recently were invited to go and give a keynote was it the Urban Futures event over there about your street gardening work? So one, you know, love to hear how the response was to work you're doing, but also what did you hear about other things that are happening that we should know about?
Um, yeah, going to Slovenia was about as random as me, honestly, getting to Northcote. North it was, people go, where would you like to go? If I could just get to Northcote, that'd be great. But I managed to get to Slovenia, which was just phenomenal. I loved the trip so much. And um, I really I haven't had an opportunity to get out much at all in the last 20 years. And so just to go there was fantastic. It really, not even getting to the festival, just getting to Slovenia and looking around and getting a real feel for the difference between the European landscape and the Australian landscape. There's a lot, still an issue, but a lot less of an issue, for instance, with introduced species compared to Australia, where it's just such a massive issue. Um, Also saw my first bumblebee, and oh my God, they are just incredible. And I lost the plot completely. And I saw my first red squirrel, and I also lost the plot completely. They are the most gorgeous things in. Oh wow. Um, but as far as the conference, I was keynoting the opening, and it was definitely they wanted to hear more about the care that kind of angle of the work. I didn't speak for very long, but I really wanted to not only talk about how care is important, but how care can be actioned by the different specialists that work in public realm. Some of the things that are happening in Europe are just incredible. I would say that, and I already kind of knew this, but it was just fantastic to have it kind of proved out. And, that there are many things that are happening over there that they're much more ahead as far as biodiversity in cities. There's a lot going on. There's some great projects. I mean, for instance, Berlin, they've got 100 pollinator gardens, and in the city. In Vienna, there's a women's department where it's like 40 women that help make Vienna more gender equitable.
Mm.
And there was I'd known about this, but to hear these incredible women talk about the gender inequality in public realm was a massive eye-opener for me. And I've thought about that a lot since. As far as biodiversity, look, Australia's just really behind. But saying that, the work that we're doing is really forward, so is really in front. And I think that that's both a fantastic thing, but also very challenging. It's really helped me see why it is hard to bring some people on board. But for instance, with funding, there's just a huge gap that I've got to kind of close, and a lot of that's around that inner city biodiversity conservation. And look, I've just come up. There's a term definitely which is urban biodiversity conservation, but I think that can be quite general, and that can include peri-urban. It can include waterways, big reserves, and that's not. It's important. It's so important, and I'm not taking anything away from that work. It's just saying that the work we do is different in that it's inner city, and that even though, in those reserves, peri-urban, there's still a lot of people that can see all that work. Land is a lot more scarce, but you can do so much with 1 square meter, for instance. The eyes that walk past a very small patch. It's not just about the change in the land. It's not just about the change in the critters. You're changing culture.
Yeah.
You're changing how people think. And because I've seen this, it helps me to keep on this track as well, because I know that happens. I suppose I've come away from Slovenia a little bit, but I suppose it was fantastic to see that our work was really respected over there.
Yeah.
And people just got it.
Yeah. And I think there's something interesting about, there is the grind of the doing, but the way that you have presented your work, you have, like how you've created a handbook on the Melbourne pollinator. You've got a beautiful website that explains the why and the mapping of it and the conversations that you have around this. You've now got a street gardening course as well that people can access. And so in a way, there's sort of multiple layers going on here. There's the daily in the gardens around your neighborhood doing that.
Yep.
There's the connecting with the collaborators to talk about how this can happen citywide. Then there's this spark of inspiration that you're offering around Australia and to other people around the world about how you can reimagine your city. Like, I think that was when I first heard about your work, it's always like, well, yeah, of course. Like, why didn't I think that before? Like, you just sort of connected the dots. We're thinking we can see this. And I've just noticed too that London, the Advaya group is now doing a London pollinator corridor. And I wouldn't be surprised if they've not seen your work and gone, wow, that's a pretty good idea. Let's get that cracking over here. And so, sometimes it's hard to see the impact of your work because
Morag,
you've put it out And it just keeps, as I talk about all the time, it's myceliating. It's landing in some fertile ground somewhere and taking off. And the conversations you had in Slovenia, in that European community, I'm sure people have taken things that you've said and that's landed in them in their sort of fertile ground and doing something as, their ideas have planted in you. And so I think it's really hard to measure. And sometimes we sort of have to keep that. Well, I know I do anyway. I need to keep that bigger picture and holding hands around the world with other people doing really interesting things to remind myself that yes, it is possible. Yes, this is important. Yes, even though sometimes there can be we hit road bumps where we are right now, but the bigger picture of it is
Yeah.
enormous. And I'm part of something that is this beautiful imagining of what we can be creating and bringing forth. And yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I wish that we could measure the impact that we have, because I do hear stories all the time. There was one person over there at the conference, and I did another little talk, and it was around how to annoy politicians, and and I was definitely talking to the actions, the advocacy that I had taken. And I had 5 points. You only had like 3 minutes to talk. So I had to really like distill, okay, if people needed tips that could be replicated anywhere, what would they be? And I had my 5 tips, and please don't ask me to say them now because I can't remember them. But she wrote them down. And she came up. She goes, "Oh my gosh, those 5 tips. I'm absolutely taking them." And she showed me. She'd put a big bubble around them and written them down. I went, "That's so fantastic." She goes, "Yep, I'm absolutely applying these to all the work that I'm doing right now, all the advocacy work." And I went, "That is just
Beautiful.
cool," because that, if anything can come out of the thinking, about
Yeah.
how to change policy and how to change the
Yeah.
insane, sometimes, bureaucracy that is council, um, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking about too, as you're talking about the women feeling safe on the
Mm.
streets, I here you are over here trying to get funding for putting biodiversity into the commons in an urban area, whereas you're also creating safe spaces for women. And when we're talking about funding, like I wonder whether there's any way that, it can be described as safe streets, wild and kind streets, like it's
Yeah.
because I mean, honestly, we sometimes the most surprising things are the bits that land and become sticky and help us to unlock that, like you were saying earlier about there's so many different ways that people sort of make sense of this. But it is all of that. It creates these beautiful biodiverse places that make it sort of, inner cities recognizable as nature, that we are part of nature, that they are hubs for biodiversity as well. They're cooling the streets. We have, it's rehydrating the landscape. It's creating safe places where people know their neighbors and there's people out in the streets doing things, caring, which makes it feel just generally more safer that there's a bit of care and love in a spot. So, I mean, all of those things are absolutely extraordinary.
We're talking about connection. And this is, it's, I think when you, coming back to that question that you asked around what do people, what is the NPC? And I would say it's all the things that I spoke about, plus it's like this web of connections through the people, because we've got like 5 different types of volunteers.
Yeah.
It's grassroots, but we're trying to scale. What does it take to scale a grassroots feel?
Mhm.
What does that take? And it takes a lot of diversity in people, in types of help, in the plantings, of course, and the critters, but it's just a huge amount of connection through this land. And that's what gives it the power, and that's what gives it resilience as well. And I don't tend to use that word because I know it's used so, so much, but in this way, the connection between the humans around the garden, for instance, gives that garden resilience. And then, of course, vice versa, the fact that that garden exists gives the community.
Oh, absolutely.
So there's this And I talk, and we've spoken a lot about the not so great times, but the amount of joy and
Mm.
intense contentment that I get from this work. I mean, that could probably be my North Star as well,
Yeah.
because I just love it so, so much. And the fact that I love this work after all that I've been through is, it just says I've got to try and make this keep on working.
Mm.
It's phenomenal to watch not only the gardens and this land come to life, but also people coming out of the woodwork, changing how they think about things, changing how they see nature, changing how they see
Mm.
their gardens, what they can do in their private realm as well. It's incredibly powerful. And I would just love to be able to continue doing this.
Well, I hope you can. And let me just ask you to, at this point, let people know what the street gardening course is about, because I think this is an important place where you've spent time very clearly documenting, processes. Like, it's a beautiful course. Thank you for letting me have a look in through it. And I really think that anyone who's interested in creating street gardens should definitely get a hold of the course, but also your guide as well. You've got resources available. So maybe just tell us a little bit more about what the course is about and what people could expect in the course.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically 10 years of my work in 20 lessons, about 7 modules. The lessons are quite small, quite compact. When you purchase the course, you get it for life. You can do it in your own time. And one of the things I really wanted to do, because street gardening is such a journey that can be different for different people with different challenges presenting at different times, I wanted people to be able to go back and be able to see things when they need. It's very much aimed for the country, not just here, not just Victoria. I talk about, I mean, it's an introduction to street gardening.
Mm.
So, look, each of the lessons could probably be a course in itself, but I wanted to talk. There's videos, there's about 27, 30 videos in there. Plus, there's lesson notes. Plus, there's action suggestions, just to get you really thinking about this. One lady I did speak to the other day really loved my lesson on the dial before you dig.
Mm.
Or it's called Before You Dig.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really happy about that, because every council pretty much wants you to do this, but then you do it and you go, this is okay. What do I do? And what does this mean? And why am I getting 13 documents? And what does that document even tell me?
Yeah.
It's actually incredibly complicated if you haven't done a whole lot of it. So I walked people through that, and she just said, oh, it was great. It was just so much easier, because generally when people are creating a street garden, they're probably only going to do one.
Yeah.
They only need to do this stuff once. And so why do we have all these amazing people throughout Australia trying to reinvent the wheel every single time?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
actually, I can just walk them through a whole lot of things, and council issues as well. You may not experience council issues. That would be fantastic. But you also might. Even if you're doing everything right, you still might. So it's, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with an aggressive local laws officer, which happens more often than you think? But then also how to enjoy the gardens, how to look for the positives. And
So it's the
basically,
nuts and bolts, really.
yeah, it's how to take stress out of your street gardening so you can enjoy it more.
Yeah, great.
That's it.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes for where people can find that, and also the Melbourne Pollinator Corridor and Heartscapes. Is there anything particular that you're working on right now that you'd love to tell people about?
Oh, yes. Yes, there is something that, again, has taken 10 years, and where the Melbourne Pollinator Corridor is considered a platform by Bunurong community, the traditional owners, and through which they can share their language and stories. And I'm so honored that they have lent in so beautifully and so generously over the last couple of months in particular. And it's incredibly powerful. And we're working on how to share all this language right now. But yes, there's this beautiful word that they have shared with us, uh, Wudut Kuriol, which means small carriers. So this is our native pollinating insects.
Mm.
And it's such an honor to be able to use this language. And it's been a dream of mine to be able to do this. And so, yeah, I can't wait till we can do this, and, with all the respect and love in the world. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing, Emma, and congratulations for getting to that point with it. I mean, I think it's like what's happening is is in so many levels a cultural shift and a cultural connection, and the web weaving that you're doing just continues to become richer and richer. And yeah, congratulations, and thank you for being so deeply committed to this work and inspiring the rest of us. Yeah.
Thank you, Morag. You've been inspirational to me as well. Very much so.